The United States government is moving forward with a bill that could completely change the landscape for Jamaica's call center industry. It's called the Keep Call Centers in America Act of 2025. And while it isn't officially law yet, the proposal has raised major alarms across Jamaica and the wider Caribbean. If this bill becomes law, it could severely limit how American companies use Jamaican call centers and could even push some of them to shut down entirely. It's not being called an outright ban, but when you look at the language and the penalties attached, it could easily end up functioning like one. Let's break down what's really happening and why it matters so much for Jamaica. Right now, Jamaica's business process outsourcing industry, often called BPO for short, employs around 60,000 Jamaicans. These are mostly people working in call centers across the country. It's one of the few industries that has grown consistently over the past decade, attracting global companies like Sutherland, ITEL, and Vistaprint. The appeal is obvious. Jamaica's English-speaking workforce, proximity to the United States, and lower labor costs make it ideal for handling customer service, sales, and technical support for U.S. companies. But this new bill could threaten all of that. The Keep Call Centers in America Act was introduced in the U.S. Congress earlier this year, both in the Senate and the House of Representatives. The main idea behind it is to discourage American businesses from sending customer service and telemarketing jobs overseas. Lawmakers argue that outsourcing has led to significant job losses in the U.S. and that it's time to bring those jobs back home. On the surface, that sounds like a patriotic move, keep American jobs in America. But for countries like Jamaica, whose economies depend on providing those outsourced services, this could have devastating ripple effects. The bill requires U.S. companies to notify the Department of Labor at least 120 days before moving a substantial portion of their call center operations overseas. Once a company makes that move, their name would be added to a public list, essentially a blacklist that anyone can view. And here's the catch. Companies on that list would become ineligible for certain federal grants, loans, and financial incentives for up to 5 years. That means if a company outsources work to Jamaica or anywhere outside the U.S., they could lose access to millions of dollars in potential government funding. Even worse, the bill also gives federal agencies the right to favor companies that operate call centers entirely within the United States. So even if a U.S. company wants to keep its Jamaican branch, it might lose out on future government contracts. For Jamaica, this is dangerous because many of the clients using our BPO industry are U.S.-based. If those companies start fearing penalties or reputational risks, they could pull out. And when they do, it's not the companies that suffer first, it's the workers. Thousands of young Jamaicans rely on call center jobs to pay their bills, support their families, and get their start in the workforce. If the bill pushes those jobs back to the U.S., it could cause widespread layoffs across the island. The U.S. lawmakers behind the bill argue that Americans are losing their livelihoods to outsourcing, and they claim that it's unfair for U.S. taxpayers to fund companies that move jobs overseas. But Jamaica and other Caribbean countries have been building their BPO sectors with the understanding that globalization is a two-way street. American companies have benefited from cheaper services, higher productivity, and around-the-clock customer support thanks to these partnerships. And the Caribbean has benefited from employment and foreign exchange. In a way, it's been a win-win. Another major part of the bill deals with customer transparency. If passed, all call center agents would have to disclose their location to customers at the start of each call. That means a Jamaican agent would have to say, "You're speaking with an agent in Jamaica." Customers in the U.S. would also have the right to request a U.S.-based representative instead. That clause alone could have a chilling effect. Even if the company is allowed to keep offshore operations, most customers would likely choose the U.S. agent if given the option. This could automatically reduce call volume for Jamaican centers and make them less essential. The bill also targets the rise of artificial intelligence in call centers. It would force companies to disclose when an AI system is being used, giving customers the right to speak to a human being located in the U.S. While that part is mainly about AI ethics, it still adds another compliance burden for any company using offshore or automated systems. The real danger is that it mixes together two different concerns under the same legal framework. In doing so, it creates more red tape for global operations and pushes companies to keep everything inside the U.S. borders. Some analysts are calling this bill a form of disguised protectionism. By labeling it as a Jobs Protection Act, it gains political support, but the deeper reality is that it could undermine developing economies that have built their growth around service exports. It's also worth noting that while U.S. lawmakers often talk about job losses from outsourcing, they rarely mention that American consumers benefit from it every day. Cheaper tech support, faster customer service, and extended hours, those conveniences exist because companies are able to operate globally. In Jamaica, both government officials and industry leaders are watching the situation closely. The Global Services Association of Jamaica, which represents the BPO industry, has already voiced concern, calling the proposed law a potential threat to Jamaica's economic stability. The Jamaican government hasn't made any official diplomatic statement yet, but privately, policymakers are aware that a U.S. decision like this could have far-reaching consequences. Some believe that Jamaica might need to start looking for new markets, perhaps Europe or Canada, to reduce its dependency on American clients. Others argue that Jamaica should focus on moving up the value chain, offering more specialized services like software development, accounting, or digital marketing, instead of only customer support. It's also possible that the law could face pushback inside the U.S. Some industry groups and business associations are already warning that it could backfire. They argue that restricting outsourcing could actually harm American competitiveness by increasing operational costs. Many companies rely on the Caribbean for high-quality English-speaking customer service at a fraction of the cost of domestic labor. If they're forced to bring those jobs back, the added expenses might lead to higher prices, slower customer support, or reduced service hours. That could frustrate consumers and end up hurting the very people the bill is supposed to protect. Still, politically, it's a message that plays well. The phrase "bring back American jobs" has been a winning slogan for years. That's why even if this specific bill doesn't pass, another one like it eventually will. The bigger question for Jamaica is what comes next. If the BPO industry shrinks, what replaces it? The country has tried to attract tech startups, animation companies, and remote work hubs, but none of those sectors come close to matching the employment numbers that call centers provide. The truth is, call centers have been a social safety net, giving thousands of young Jamaicans a way to earn income without needing a college degree. Taking that away could deepen inequality and drive more people into informal or unstable work. At the same time, Jamaica can't simply rely on sympathy. The BPO industry has grown fast, but it's also fragile. The situation is a reminder that the country needs to diversify its economy and not depend too heavily on one foreign market. It's also a call for regional cooperation. If the U.S. goes through with this, Caribbean nations might have to come together to negotiate collectively or to lobby for fair treatment. Individually, Jamaica doesn't have much leverage, but collectively, the region represents a valuable and skilled labor pool that U.S. companies still rely on. That's a card that shouldn't be ignored. In the end, this proposed law is more than just a policy debate in Washington. It's a signal of where global outsourcing might be heading. The combination of AI, automation, and political nationalism is reshaping how countries like Jamaica fit into the world economy. For now, the bill hasn't been passed, but it's advancing through committees and gaining attention. If it does become law, Jamaica will have to adjust quickly, either by finding new clients, upgrading its services, or negotiating exceptions.